There is a moment almost every senior in America knows all too well. You open the mailbox, and there it is again, a stack of bills, notices, warnings, and threatening letters printed in red ink. Some envelopes say a payment is overdue, others say final notice. And some look so official and intimidating that your heart sinks before you even open them. For many seniors living on a fixed income, these letters steal sleep, peace, and dignity. And yet very few older adults know the shocking truth. A large portion of these bills are not legally owed at all. A 79-year-old woman named Patricia from Oklahoma learned this only after months of panic. She had been paying a bill she didn't legally owe for over a year, money she desperately needed for groceries and medication. When she finally spoke with a consumer protection attorney, the lawyer looked at her, shook his head gently, and said, "Patricia, you do not owe this. They have no legal claim over you." She broke down crying, not because she was sad, but because she finally felt free. And here is the part that may shock you. Attorneys across the country say seniors are the group most commonly targeted with unfair, expired, or legally unenforceable bills. Not because they owe more, but because they are more likely to trust what a letter says, fear legal trouble, and pay without question. Today, we're going to uncover the truth. There are 6 types of bills that many struggling seniors do not legally owe, even if companies try to intimidate you, send scary letters, or threaten to take action. You'll learn the real laws behind these debts, the rights you already have, and the protections most seniors don't know about. You'll also hear stories from seniors who stopped paying bills they never should have been paying in the first place, and how those decisions gave them back hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars. Before we continue, I want to speak directly to you. If you've ever felt embarrassed, stressed, or overwhelmed by bills, please understand something: you have done nothing wrong. Many seniors feel ashamed when they can't pay every bill, but shame is exactly what predatory companies rely on. It keeps older adults silent, confused, and easy to pressure. A consumer lawyer once said, 90% of the bills seniors panic about are either unenforceable, already settled, or improperly sent. But unless someone tells you that, how would you ever know? That's why this video matters. Because every senior deserves clarity, dignity, and peace, not fear, confusion, or harassment. Today's topic is not about encouraging anyone to avoid legitimate responsibilities. It is about protecting seniors from bills that are not valid, not legally enforceable, or not their responsibility under U.S. law. And some of these may surprise you: medical debts that lose legal power after a certain number of years, credit accounts wiped clean by statutes of limitation, charges sent to you that should have gone to an insurance company, debts belonging to a deceased spouse that collectors falsely claim you must pay, and even more. When you finish this video, you will understand exactly which 6 bills a lawyer would tell you to stop paying immediately, why they are legally unenforceable, and how to protect yourself if a collector tries to threaten or pressure you. But before we dive into the first category, I want to ask you for a small favor that helps this channel reach more seniors who desperately need this information. If you find this helpful so far, please comment below, hit the like button, and subscribe to Senior Ways. You might save someone else from paying a bill they don't owe. Now that you're here with me, let's take a deep breath and begin revealing the 6 types of bills many seniors can legally walk away from without guilt, fear, or consequences. And I'll warn you now, the very first one is one of the most common traps, and it affects millions of older adults who don't realize the bill in their hand has already died legally, even if the company keeps trying to collect. Bill type number 1. Old medical bills that have passed the statute of limitations. The very first category a lawyer points to when helping seniors is one that surprises almost everyone: old medical bills that are legally expired. Many seniors in their 60s, 70s, and 80s are still receiving letters for medical treatments they had 10 or even 15 years ago. Some of those letters look frightening: bold fonts, red ink words like "urgent immediate response required" or "final attempt before action." But here is the truth: most seniors do not know. Every state in the United States has a statute of limitations that puts an expiration date on most medical debts. Once that time passes, the debt becomes time-barred, meaning collectors cannot sue, you cannot force payment, and cannot legally take you to court. A 72-year-old man named Glenn from Michigan carried a medical bill from 21 years ago. For decades, he felt ashamed every time a letter arrived. He kept paying small amounts because he didn't want trouble. When he finally spoke to an attorney at a free senior legal aid clinic, the attorney nearly fell out of his chair. "Glenn," he said, "this debt expired more than 15 years ago. You do not owe a penny." Glenn cried. He said he felt like a prisoner who had just been released. Collectors know seniors fear legal consequences. They know seniors don't want to be seen as irresponsible or in trouble. So they send intimidating letters, hoping older adults will pay out of guilt, fear, or confusion, even though they cannot legally enforce the debt. A lawyer's advice in these situations is simple. If a medical bill is older than the statute of limitations in your state, you do not legally owe it, even if collectors continue contacting you. And in many cases, paying even a few dollars restarts the clock, which is why seniors should not pay expired debts at all. No senior should spend their limited income on bills that the law itself says are already dead. Bill type number 2, credit card debt, that collectors cannot legally enforce. The second type of bill seniors often pay unnecessarily is credit card debt that can no longer be legally collected. This is one of the most common traps. Many older adults feel tremendous guilt about unpaid credit cards, even if the debt is decades old. They fear someone will come to their door, sue them, garnish income, or take their home. But consumer lawyers say the same rule applies here. If the debt is past the statute of limitations, it is no longer legally enforceable. Let me tell you about Eleanor, an 80-year-old widow from Ohio. When her husband passed away, she fell behind on a department store credit card they had used to buy gifts for their grandchildren. After a few years, she started receiving letters from a collector demanding thousands of dollars. The letters frightened her so much, she kept them hidden in a shoebox in her closet. One afternoon, her son found the box while helping her reorganize. Disturbed by what he saw, he took her to a consumer rights attorney. The attorney looked through the stack, then smiled kindly and said, "Eleanor, these debts are nearly 20 years old. They cannot sue you, they cannot garnish anything, they cannot force payment, you don't owe them." Eleanor felt her knees weaken. "All this time," she said, "I've been afraid of something that wasn't even real." Credit card debt collectors often buy old debts for pennies on the dollar, then target seniors with threatening letters. Many seniors end up paying simply because they want the pressure to stop. But a lawyer will tell you expired credit card debt loses its legal bite. Collectors can ask, but they cannot demand, cannot sue, and cannot take any action that forces payment. A critical detail most seniors don't know is this. Paying even $1 reactivates old debt and gives collectors new legal power. That's why lawyers often tell seniors not to send money on old credit accounts before confirming whether the statute of limitations has expired. Just like old medical bills, many credit card debts are nothing more than paper ghosts. They look scary, but they have no power. Bill type number 3, debts belonging to a deceased spouse that you are not responsible for. This next type of bill is one of the most heartbreaking and manipulative situations lawyers see. When a spouse passes away, seniors are already dealing with the emotional weight of grief, loneliness, and major life changes. And during this vulnerable period, many companies send letters demanding that the surviving spouse pay the deceased partner's remaining debts. But here is the truth lawyers repeat over and over again. A surviving spouse is usually not personally responsible for a deceased partner's individual debts. This includes credit cards, personal loans, old medical bills, and even collection accounts. In most states, those debts belong only to the deceased person's estate, not to their husband or wife. Let me share the story of Caroline, a 76-year-old woman from Pennsylvania. Her husband, Robert, passed away after a long battle with cancer. 2 weeks after the funeral, she received letters demanding thousands of dollars in unpaid medical bills under his name. Some letters looked official, almost like government notices. Others used bold red fonts, as if she was in legal trouble. Caroline panicked. She lived on Robert's small pension and Social Security. She felt pressured and ashamed. She didn't want to dishonor her husband by not paying. So she began sending $50 a month money she desperately needed for groceries and medication. Months later, during a free legal clinic at her church, she met an attorney who asked to see her letters. After reading them, he looked at her gently and said, "Caroline, you never owed these. None of these debts were yours." She broke down crying in the middle of the church basement. Why, she asked, would they send these letters if I didn't owe them? The lawyer answered with painful honesty, because companies know seniors are trusting, and they know many widows pay out of fear. In most cases, if the debt is in the deceased spouse's name alone, the surviving partner is not responsible. A lawyer will tell you that collectors rely on confusion and grief to pressure payment. No senior should pay a bill that was never theirs in the first place. Bill type number 4, utility and service bills. You already canceled, but the company never stopped charging. This next category traps more seniors than almost any other. It happens when an older adult cancels a service cable, internet, satellite TV, phone lines, security systems, or subscription services, but the company keeps billing anyway. Many seniors don't notice immediately. They assume the bill is legitimate. Some keep paying for months. Others feel embarrassed if they missed a step in the cancellation process. But a consumer lawyer will tell you, if you canceled a service and the company continues billing, you do not legally owe those charges. Let me share the story of Harold, an 82-year-old veteran from Georgia. He canceled his cable package because he barely watched television anymore. The customer service representative assured him the account was closed, but the next month a bill arrived, then another, then another. Each one looked slightly more urgent than the last, and the wording became more aggressive. Harold thought maybe he had misunderstood the cancellation, and he feared being sent to collections. So he kept paying $35 a month for nearly a year, more than $400 in wasted money. One day his daughter visited, looked at the bill, and immediately said, "Dad, this looks suspicious." She called the company, recorded the conversation, and discovered that Harold's account had been canceled, but the system accidentally kept auto-billing him. When Harold told this story to a consumer rights attorney during a senior center workshop, the attorney said something that stuck with him. Companies know most seniors will never challenge a bill. The truth is this: if you canceled a service, the charges that appear afterward are not valid. Lawyers call these zombie bills, charges that keep appearing even after the account is dead. And here's something even more important. A company cannot legally force you to pay for a service you did not use, did not receive, and did not authorize. If they continue billing after cancellation, those charges are their error, not your responsibility. Seniors should never feel guilty for refusing to pay bills that exist only because a company failed to do its job. Bill type number 5, surprise medical bills, that are legally the insurance company's responsibility, not yours. This next bill type is one of the most infuriating, and lawyers say seniors are the group most targeted with it. These are surprise medical bills, also known as out-of-network charges, that appear after a hospital visit, surgery, ambulance ride, or emergency treatment. For decades, seniors opened their mailbox and found enormous charges they never expected, sometimes thousands of dollars, simply because the doctor or specialist who treated them was out of network. The senior didn't choose the doctor, the senior didn't approve the service, they simply received care in a moment of need. But a lawyer will tell you something that shocks most seniors. Under federal law, many of these surprise bills are no longer legally your responsibility. The No Surprises Act protects patients, especially seniors on Medicare or seniors in emergency situations, from being billed for out-of-network care that they never chose. If the hospital accepted your insurance, the doctors who treated you cannot legally send you large balance bills demanding payment. Let me tell you about Linda, a 79-year-old woman from Wisconsin. After a fall in her kitchen, she was rushed to the emergency room. The hospital accepted her insurance, so she assumed she was covered. But 2 months later, She received a bill for $1,200 from an out-of-network radiologist she never met. Linda panicked. She lived alone and had very little savings left after her husband passed away. She called the number on the bill, and the representative told her she needed to pay immediately, or they would take further steps. Linda was terrified. It wasn't until she went to a free senior legal clinic that a lawyer told her the truth. "Linda, this bill breaks federal law. You do not owe it." Her eyes filled with tears. All this fear, she said, and it wasn't even real. The hospital eventually withdrew the bill completely. Here's the part most seniors don't know. If you receive care in an emergency room or at a facility that accepts your insurance, many surprise out-of-network charges are illegal, even if the company keeps sending them. Lawyers say tens of thousands of seniors pay these bills every year simply because they don't know the law has changed. No senior should pay a bill for care they did not choose. Bill type number 6, debt collector's fee. Bills charges. They add that are not authorized by law. The final bill type is one of the sneakiest and most deceptive practices targeting seniors. These are collector-added fees, extra charges debt collectors attach to old bills, hoping seniors won't question them. These fees often show up as administrative charges, processing costs, legal preparation fees, recovery costs, or vague items like collection expenses. Here is what lawyers say over and over. In many cases, these added fees are completely illegal. Collectors often buy old debts for pennies, then inflate the amount to scare seniors into paying quickly. But unless these fees were part of the original contract, which they almost never are, you do not owe them. Let me share the story of Samuel, an 81-year-old retired school custodian from North Carolina. He received a notice claiming he owed $340 on an old bill, but the original debt was only $140. The extra $200 came from collection fees the company attached. Samuel, confused and embarrassed, began skipping lunches so he could pay the bill. When his daughter found the notice on his table, she immediately brought him to a legal advocate. The advocate read the paper carefully, shook her head, and said, "Samuel, these added fees are illegal. They cannot charge you this. You do not owe anything beyond the original amount, and even that may be expired." Samuel sighed with relief so deeply it almost sounded like a sob. "I thought I was failing as a man," he said quietly. Collectors rely on that exact feeling. But lawyers repeat this simple truth. If a fee was not in the original agreement, it is often unenforceable. No senior should drain their savings paying inflated charges created out of thin air. Collectors know older adults are polite, trusting, and respectful of authority. That's why they test boundaries. But seniors have rights, strong rights, and many of these added fees crumble the moment a lawyer looks at them. Final thoughts. You and I have covered something incredibly important today, something that could protect a senior's dignity, peace, and financial survival. So before we close, let's take a gentle moment to revisit the truths that far too many older adults never hear. All across the United States, seniors are being pressured, intimidated, and manipulated into paying bills they do not legally owe. Not because they are irresponsible, not because they made mistakes, but because companies know seniors are honest, trusting, and afraid of conflict. Companies use that fear, they count on it. But today, you've learned the truth that lawyers wish every senior knew. We began by uncovering the first type of bill you may not legally owe: old medical debts that have passed the statute of limitations. These debts are legally expired, meaning collectors cannot sue, you cannot take action, and cannot force payment. Seniors like Glenn spent years paying bills that died long ago because no one told them the law had changed. Today, you now know what Glenn never knew. Then we explored another category that traps millions of seniors: old credit card debts that collectors buy for pennies and attempt to collect long after they become legally unenforceable. Seniors like Eleanor lived in fear for decades, paying old debts that had no legal power. A lawyer would have told her instantly, "You don't owe this anymore." Next, we learned one of the most painful truths: you are usually not personally responsible for debts belonging to a deceased spouse. Caroline paid bills from deep grief, believing she had a moral duty, but the law never required her to pay. She was pressured emotionally, not legally. Seniors deserve to know that love and loyalty do not require paying debts that were never theirs. From there, we discovered the fourth type of bill that seniors often pay without question: utility or service bills for accounts that were already canceled. These zombie bills keep appearing even after the account is closed. Seniors like Harold spent hundreds of dollars paying charges that existed only because the company failed to stop billing. The law is clear: you do not owe for services you did not receive. Then we uncovered one of the most shocking protection surprise medical bills that federal law now forbids. Seniors like Linda were terrified by out-of-network charges they had no control over. But lawyers know the truth: those bills are illegal under the No Surprises Act, and no senior should pay them. And finally, we talked about the sneakiest trap of all: collector-added fees that were never part of the original contract. Seniors like Samuel nearly starved themselves to pay inflated charges invented by debt collectors. Lawyers say these made-up fees are often unenforceable and should not be paid. All 6 of these situations reveal one painful truth: seniors are being targeted not because they owe more, but because they fear more. And fear is a powerful tool for those who want your money. But knowledge breaks fear. When you understand your rights, the intimidation loses its power. When you know the law, the letters stop controlling your emotions. When you understand the truth, you begin living with strength, confidence, and peace again. You deserve that peace. You have earned that peace. You have lived long enough, sacrificed enough, and carried enough burdens. No one has the right to bully you financially, emotionally, or legally. Before we end, I'd like to speak to you as gently and honestly as I can. If you are a senior who has ever felt ashamed, scared, or overwhelmed by bills, please remember this: you are not alone, and you are not failing. You are a human being trying your best in a system designed to confuse you. There is no shame in not knowing these laws. But now that you do, you have the power to protect yourself. And now I want to ask you for something small but meaningful. If this video helped you, please comment below, hit like, and subscribe to Senior Ways. Your engagement helps us reach more seniors across America who desperately need this information. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever received a bill that didn't feel right? What did you do? Your story could protect another senior from being taken advantage of. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Stay informed, stay strong, and remember, your peace is worth protecting. I'll see you in the next video, my friend.